Coming here was literally life or death and so scary, but St. Jude is fighting for one goal, like this one mission, life, and that gave us hope. We haven't received a single bill from St. Jude, so I really can just focus on what's best for Burnley.
I know I did some too, and then I couldn't take it anymore. I had to back off.
It's not that hard. I've been messing around with it all weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory.
It's very self-explanatory.
Be safe, look after yourself, and look after one another.
Go to
Stand by.
firstf.org and help us help them.
WWDB Philadelphia, the talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole, she's Sarah Time, and she's Stacy Mitchell. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we've got a lot to cover today on the show. We've got our healthiest inventory growth week of the year, which we're going to talk about. The Realtor.com op-ed and marketing campaign that debuted on the Wall Street Journal last week, and the power of being specific when selling real estate and in sales in general. And we're going to start with this inventory information first. So thanks to Logan Motoshami and Housing Wire. And before we get into this, if you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call about how inventory growth or any of these things affect your real estate plans, you can reach out to these two ladies with the link in the comments. So Logan Motoshami at Housing Wire puts together, he calls it the housing market tracker. It's all lead indicators. We reference this constantly. And this past week, we saw 16,582 new homes come to the market. That's ending April 20th, which is one of the healthiest weeks we've seen in quite a while. And, you know, his barometer here is that he's believing that inventory should grow between 11 to 17,000 units weekly when rates get to the 7.25% range, and that's exactly what happened here. So, are you two feeling more inventory in the market? I mean, what does this look like locally for you and your clients? Sounds like you're out showing properties a lot, which is great. So, what are you two seeing? Is this something we need to be, shouting from the rooftops? Tell me more.
I mean, I think that the hot properties are going very quickly. So like definitely not stale inventory, but there are more, then the next day more are popping up, and sometimes on odd days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally noticed on odd days of the week.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Something will come up on a Tuesday. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Where did this come from?
Right.
Unfortunately, that happened to us last week. It popped up on a Tuesday. We got out like Wednesday morning, had the offer in by Wednesday night, and then the seller decided to wait until Sunday night to make a decision.
Yeah.
Did that tick everybody off?
It
Because
did.
that is a long time to be waiting. I mean, I could see a
Yes.
day or two, but
No.
you're talking about 5 days at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, why did you put it up on Tuesday?
You're right. No,
Yeah.
didn't. I guess it does. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ticked a lot of people off.
Yeah.
But and you have to think about risking a withdrawal, or
Mhm.
what if another property would come on? It really
Mhm.
ties up a lot of time
Yeah.
for everybody involved.
Right.
And how many offers really do you need? Do you need 25 offers on a property? Do you
Right.
need, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's
Like,
a
you don't
couple.
want to review that many.
Right.
Well,
There's
it's a
a
lot of
couple.
work, yeah.
It's a lot of work and a lot of time wasted. There's a few that are far above and beyond,
Yeah.
right? There's a couple that stand out.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them, they all look very similar.
Yep.
So it's the same over and over and over again, just insert the property address, right?
Mhm.
But I think for the most part, I'm definitely seeing an increase in inventory. I have a number of clients that are very neighborhood specific, so they're not coming on the
Yeah.
market. But in general, overall, yeah, I've definitely seen an increase
Yeah.
in the inventory, which is great.
So Lance Lambert does a really nice job with this. If you're not following his website, it's called ResiClubAnalytics.com, and it goes local, which I really appreciate because, like, if you're in Florida right now, you're seeing 35% increase in inventory, which
Wow.
it sounds awesome from our perspective. it's a lot to deal with when because the market's shifting, very, very fast in those markets, and there's so many great resources to find data. So if you look at just our local MLS, and I know we do trainings on this stuff all the time, but what ends up happening is people don't even know where you can find this stuff. So our Bright MLS does a weekly snapshot of the housing market, and the week ending April 14th, we saw the number of active listings was 4% higher than where it was a year ago. So that's a significant jump. But here's probably the more important stat: showings are down 20.8% since that same week last year. So the inventory feels like it's more, because I'm not saying it's not a competitive market, but it's a little less competitive than where it was. And so are you finding that your clients are able to have like a little bit of time to look at these things, or what? Like, I mean, how fast is it moving? What are you seeing in the field here? Because all across the board, we're seeing inventory come up, and this has been one of the biggest complaints buyers and sellers have had since the last 4 years, let's call it.
No.
There's still a huge sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm. So how do you coach people with that? Because you say, oh, inventory's up, rates are up. What are you telling people? Because you see these stats, doesn't tell you the real story of what's happening in the market.
It really is house specific.
Mm-hmm.
And once a house comes onto the market, we don't know the reception it's going to get.
Right.
That first weekend out. So in order to not miss an opportunity, you have to get out there right away.
Right.
If it's a house that your clients love and they want to put an offer and do it, you have to. Like, you don't want to ever miss an opportunity. So yes, even though inventory is higher, you still have to get out right away.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's still, and as we've like drilled in over and over again, property specific, but for certain pockets of homes, if you're not out there in day one or day two, they've probably at this point either they're reviewing stuff, they've set an offer deadline, they've like your best bet is go in right away and get your offer in so that you don't miss the opportunity, and don't like overthink it. Like, don't think, well, how many offers are in now, and like, no, get it in,
Right. And there was a specific house that came on the market, it's been on the market a couple of weeks. Of course, one of my clients is like, oh, it's a great opportunity because there must not be any action on it.
Yeah.
Well, I come to find out, if you dig a little deeper and you make a phone call to the listing agent, you find out, well, it's an estate sale and there's 5 siblings involved and they've been reviewing 4 offers and they can't make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get the whole backstory.
Yeah.
It's deceiving. Yeah, it's been on a couple of weeks, but you have 5 people that can't agree.
Right.
And that's why it's still active.
Yeah. Right.
So
Well,
it's very interesting.
And that sheds light on these things, because there's always these situations, and if you're not making those phone calls as an agent, you're doing your client a disservice. And there's value for that buyer that's saying, hey, you know what, I'm willing to hang in there, because some people are just so impatient in this current market that hey, if you're not answering me by 5 o'clock, I'm pulling my offer. Well, I don't think that really helps you if you actually want to get the house. I mean,
Right.
It's more if you want to like try to negotiate something or do it a little differently. So that's good intel on your part, Stacy. And if you look at these national single-family home listings, so just to give some perspective, nationally, this time last year, we saw 59,000 homes on the market compared to 68,769. So it's been a pretty large jump. And you can see 2024, besides 1 week on the charts on April the 8th, has been way ahead of new listings coming to the market on a regular basis. So that's a good sign here. That also tells me that agents are going to need to be ready to have price adjustment conversations, to talk to their sellers on a regular basis and not just hope it sells, and also identify the opportunities in the market too, because we're at the very beginning of this here. Like, this is only going to continue. And if you can do that, and you're targeting, like, do you have strategies for homes with elevated days on market that you discuss with your buyers, or how are you starting to get ahead of this? Because this is a very different market than 24 months ago, and I don't think everyone is operating that way.
Yes. I feel like having strategies in place, especially if there was a question about where to list it at from the get-go, that's like a good thing to to address right away. And then monitoring that feedback, especially when no offers come in, because there also will be situations where you have a home that gets a lot of showings, and half the agents that submit feedback may put in, like price too high, and then offers come in that are over what you have it listed at. So like take things with a grain of salt. But if your feedback is showing a very a trend of something, and you are not getting offers at where you have it listed, being I think it's important to always have a weekly check-in with your clients, so that every time a showing response comes in, you're not going to call them and be like, hey, did you see that? Let's talk about what to do. But being able to review, this is what's happened in the past week, and then kind of giving some options for putting the ball in their court, but saying this is how it could play out.
Right, definitely give them recommendations on next moves, especially if the feedback is not matching. If you come out that some sellers want to be more aggressive in this market, so they want to come out a little higher, and that's fine. I'm willing to test anything, but if we're not getting the positive response that we are hoping for,
right,
based on feedback, based on numbers of showings, based on how many people come through the open house. I mean, there's a lot of data that comes in. So I think that covering all that information with the clients, see where they're at. If they're still not willing to budge, sometimes it can be, frustrating or problematic, but you just have to, it's ultimately their decision.
Right.
And you just try to help them navigate and give them the data. That's what it really comes down to, just giving the information.
Yeah, give them the data, give them the facts, give them options, and then if it's up to them for what the next step that they take is.
Well, and when you talk about giving them the data, I totally agree with that. And it's, some people don't like the data. Well, then they don't need to make a real estate decision. That's always an option. We coach on, hey, what are the three options, right? What's the challenge? What are the three options? One of the options is to do nothing and not move ahead. And that's always an option. If you're not putting that on the table, then you're actually doing your clients a disservice, because doing nothing is always an option. Hey, let's pull the house off the market. Let's kill the deal. That's there. Now, most of the time they don't want to do that. But you have to remind them, hey, we can just walk away now. That's fine. And that helps show that you're not attached to the outcome here and it's about them. What I would be talking about right now, we shared this stat yesterday within our team meeting that we have twice a month about what's going on in the market. If you look at the Philadelphia market compared to others, in terms of the price shifts in the 40 largest metro areas, according to the Lance Lambert House Price Tracker, Philadelphia is up 7.9% year over year. That is incredible to me. And that's something that really shows we're in a market where it's safe to invest in real estate. These people that are afraid to make an offer or go a little bit higher, well, that $5,000 you didn't want to go up on a $600,000 home, you might have cost yourself 7% there. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think this number here, if you look at the top metros that were compared, so year over year, besides LA, and that's it, and Boston. So they have New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Miami, Atlanta, Georgia, Boston, Phoenix, San Francisco. Philadelphia is at 7.9%. The only two places that had a higher year over year jump in pricing was LA at 9.3% and Boston, Massachusetts at 9.5%. And then if you look at the shift since the 2020 peak, Philadelphia is way ahead, with the exception of Miami, Florida, which was 7.7%. Philadelphia's at 5.7%, way ahead of these other markets. And overall, since March 2020, home values are up 39.4%. So to me, that is a clear piece of data you want to share that, hey, the longer you wait, the more you're costing yourself in net worth. And some people are going to say, well, net worth and equity, it's not real money. Well, it is when you go to sell the home and it's worth a certain amount and you get a check for it. So I don't totally agree with that. And that shows you that I think we're in a very stable market, which is one of the events, we don't see the same peaks and valleys. We talked about Florida inventory jumping up 35%. I mean, the only Florida's town on here is Miami. I mean, you don't hear about any others. And you're seeing that in Texas as an example. Dallas and Houston, they're at 1.8% year over year appreciation, and they're down since the 2022 peak. So these hot spots have not been so hot long term, and that's something I'd be telling everyone if I'm a local agent in the Philadelphia metro marketplace. Big deal there.
Yeah.
So do you think there's people you need to share that with, that you're working with right now?
A couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, people, if they're just getting into the market and they might not have been following the appreciation values over the years, the most recent years, they might not have that understanding, that clear understanding that, yeah, the values are going up at this pace.
Right.
And what was that from 2022? 39.
So that's the peak. No, that's from 2020. And then
But that's huge.
It's incredible, and it's behind some of those other larger cities. But I'm talking about the performance since the market shifted. That to me is the most exciting thing, because it shows that we're in a place that's a very stable area, right?
Yes.
We don't see these big peaks, we don't see these big valleys, and I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways for the people that are here.
It's a great thing.
Right. It makes you feel confident that
Your investment is solid. Yeah. It's sometimes though it is the trust that it's hard to, you know, when we talk to people, Sarah,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
sometimes you can just see them like, yeah, okay,
right.
you know, but I think that giving case studies of people who maybe made a purchase in 2020 or 2021 and for some reason they have to move, and what they purchased for and what they sold for, and how that every year or even every 6 months at this point that you wait, it's going to cost. It's going to cost more.
Well, and that's where, you know, that third party validation, just sharing this data, not telling them, but like, hey, here's the data, here's the stats. I mean, that's where people are going to start to win, especially in this new era of buyer agency, where if you're not really educating folks, I think you're going to have a very hard time getting them to meet with you and getting them to sign some sort of agreement when they need to go look at a home. So that sort of practice is going to go a long way moving forward. So I see positives here for sellers that want to buy and people that want to buy in general. Although if I'm a seller, I'm also looking at this and saying, wow, we've seen all this great appreciation. And if you look at what Zillow's predicting for the next 12 months, not as robust as what we're talking about. So Zillow came out with their market regional home price shift predictions and their forecast between now and next March. The Philadelphia, Camden, Wilmington MSA, they call it a market service area, is predicted to jump 1.6%. So if I'm a seller and I'm seeing, wow, we're up 7.9 year to date, but only 1.6 is predicted for next year, and I've been on the fence, and especially if you got a place to go, I think that's like the biggest thing. I'd be looking at inventories rising. I don't want to be competing with a lot of people, even though we've got a long way to go. This may be an opportunity for some sellers to really cash out and still get those great terms at a number that might be a little better than if they're competing with one or two more houses. I'm very clear on that. So I'd be cautioned against waiting and really asking yourself the question, how certain are you it's going to be better to sell next year as opposed to this year?
Right. I agree.
So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've talked about inventory, pricing, all the predictions here. We're going to talk about this Realtor.com op-ed piece. I've got some very clear opinions on it. I'm curious what yours are. We'll be back on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential
read this thing and you need to kind of drive
including
forward.
first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free
skimmed through it.
call us at
Appreciate you telling me what's up.
610-439-8000 or apply online at
It's my job here, right?
For the best local mortgage service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. To learn more, visit our website
Yeah, I just talked to Romy. Yeah, I talked to her
or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
I'm so relieved Eric
We
got back
always
to
have
me.
a
I was
person
like
available
freaking out.
to
I'm like,
take your
I'm
call
like,
with
they think about pulling the
around-the-clock
listing.
human service.
Say
Purchase
something
your
else.
home with the
Sorry.
personalized local service.
I'm so
you
relieved he got
find.
back to me. I thought like, are they gonna pull the listing? Are they having second thoughts?
The
Like, what's
Tom Toole
going
Sales
on? All
Group is
these
the
things
number
are.
one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over
He
said it's gonna
165
be a couple
million in
weeks.
volume for
Yeah,
2021.
like,
Anytime
I'm
you
Tom
deal with
Toole,
that
and
kind of
our
stuff,
team
it's
has
It's like
achieved
he's
that
got his
kind of
attorney involved
success
too.
by
His attorney's
being a
pretty
great
fast.
place
Like,
to
I haven't
work
talked
with
to him on the phone.
and to work for. No one knows greater. 1 minute, do. We know real estate, but more
They
importantly,
warned us this
we're
process
real
may take a few
people.
weeks.
We hire the best
And they
agents
said, why don't we get
and
some
give them
updated
all the
photos
tools
with
to
the
succeed.
trees blooming, which
Even
I
our
actually agree
brand
with.
new
I think it's
agents
a
sell
good idea.
17 to 24
Oh,
homes
it
a
must
year
be
because
beautiful.
our
Yeah,
team
I'm gonna
delivers
take a
the best
drive-by.
experience in
Yeah.
real
When it's-
estate. Teams deliver
It's
a
gotta
better
be gorgeous,
experience than
'cause they
This
have
is like the
like-
prime time of year before all the
1%
like
real
the
estate
petals
team in
fall
the
off
country.
too. So
We
Yeah.
call
I'm
it
gonna send
AAA
Nick out
Service.
next week
We're
when
your
they're not
advocate,
home.
ally, and advisor.
That's a
Because
good
this
idea.
isn't a transaction to us; it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. 20 seconds. Your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
Right?
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control
Wow, that's
over your
unusual for
income?
me to-
Whether you
Especially where that's
to
located.
that, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our team, the Tom Group at RE/MAX main line.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Time, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And if you get some value out of this, we're going to be talking about this Realtor.com marketing campaign and op-ed piece, as well as the value in being specific in this business. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with one of these two ladies about anything real estate related, click on the link in the comments. So this op-ed piece came out last week, and it's behind like a paywall in the Wall Street Journal. We talked about this on the Knowledge Brokers podcast because it's something that it's I was a little shocked at how this all played out. So the first thing that came out was this Realtor.com marketing piece. It's a campaign with the aim of enlightening consumers about the essential roles played by buyer agents during real estate transactions. So I get that. That makes sense. And they emphasize 111 different tasks that a buyer's agent undertakes to facilitate a smooth home buying process. And, obviously there's all these negative stories out there right now about real estate agents and the industry. That can go on forever. The message was, here's 111 things to do, or do one thing, find a buyer's agent. So what did you guys think about this marketing piece that came out? Did you get a chance to look at it? Like, give me your reactions here first and foremost before I get into some reactionary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good take on it, kind of to have the list of like all of these different things, because I think there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that maybe isn't seen by everyone, and there's a lot of pieces need to come together in order to get to settlement, even if both parties are in agreement on how everything's going. There's a lot of back end stuff that has to go on.
Of course, even if it's a dream type of transaction.
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, if we added the hours per deal that we work on, or field phone calls or emails, or talk to title about it, or, you know, digging up information and comms and the appraisal, and I mean, there's so much involved. And I think sometimes, you know, we field so much information and don't pass it on to the clients because it doesn't need to be passed on.
Right.
That they don't really have a good idea of what we do behind the scenes.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of this, real estate agents don't do anything kind of comes into play.
Yeah.
That is so far from the truth. So I think that putting these 111 things to do and,
Yeah.
maybe it's all, a mix of things of those.
Mhm.
Maybe not all of them. Sometimes deals, yes, there's all of them and then some.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good way to put it out. I mean, in any industry, you're going to have negative reviews or just negative. People have been through bad situations.
Yeah.
You always hear about the used car salesman, but they're still car salesmen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you still, to buy a car, for the most part, if you want a new vehicle, you're going down to the dealership and you have to talk to them.
Right.
So, and I really believe that unless you are capable of navigating through a highly complicated real estate transaction by yourself, or you feel like you have the confidence to do that
Mhm.
as a lay person
Mhm.
that's never done it before in their life, I mean, you can go on and take on that role, but it is very complicated and
Right.
things can happen.
Yeah.
And it is the largest financial purchase that you'll probably make in your lifetime.
So I agree with everything you said. What I don't agree with is this marketing piece. Did you actually look at this thing? So it is so small and basically unusable. Someone gave this to me. Here's the picture of this, Sarah. Is that going to make your eyes gloss over when you see all that?
Yes.
It's small print, and I'm not disagreeing with the idea of here's all the things we do to help you, because we've done this in our buyer presentations. If someone gave me this list, I'd look at that and I would probably throw it out or just gloss over it. It's too much in there and it's an unusable marketing piece. So I don't like how they're presenting it. I don't think that's very well thought out. It's too small. The average consumer is not going to want to hear about 111 different things. One of the key traits, in my view, of being a real estate agent is to be able to clearly delineate your value in a short and concise way that makes sense to the average consumer. So let me just read to you some of the things that they're. First of all, I'm having trouble even reading this, which is the first problem. But throughout the process, know the risks of posting home search details on social media to avoid being targeted for fraud. What does that even mean? Right? I mean, this is some of the stuff that's here, and that's I just picked that out randomly, and it's not readable. So I don't like the marketing piece. I think that Realtor.com could have done a much better job with this. There's no doubt they need professional support and expertise while navigating a large financial decision. I think that's very clear, Stacy. This is going to lose a lot of people. If you're saying there's a lot to do and here's all the things I do, well, how about you just tell me all the things that are going to benefit me? What we know is that according to the NAR home buyer profile, 50% of buyers, this is the number one thing buyers want, someone to help them find the right home to purchase. So if you focus on that, you're appealing to 50% of the people right off the bat. Here's all the ways I'm going to help you look for a home differently than putting you on a property drip. Because that's what most agents do. That's what agents need to be doing, and looking at those stats there. Because how many times do we practice our presentations in the office, and people invariably focus on the things that most consumers have low on their list instead of what's most important?
Right.
Which is usually timing, finding the house, getting the home sold, making sure the deal doesn't fall through.
Right.
So I'm not a big fan of this piece. The bigger issue I have is the op-ed article. And this is really disappointing coming from Realtor.com CEO Damian Eales, because he had a chance to advocate for this, maybe set the record straight in the Wall Street Journal. And on this op-ed piece, I'm going to read you some excerpts. I just want to get your reaction to this. They highlighted a couple things, this is right from the Wall Street Journal article. Let me get to it here. Here we go. So one of the comments that he made is that he said, the settlement is a positive development. It could lower real estate agents' commissions, benefiting home buyers. It also increases transparency and negotiation power for home buyers who use agents for representation. The settlement will also increase professionalism amongst agents, who will now sign an agreement detailing their services before showing a buyer a home. These policies should put downward pressure on commission prices, which currently average 5.3%. What do you think about that commentary there?
Well, I think some of the numbers are incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
He said 5.3% are split between buyer and seller agents. I cut that off.
I think that, everybody's so hyper-focused on what goes into our pockets.
Right. Right.
You know, and we talk about other industries that, you know, aren't being attacked all the time about the money that they make.
Right.
Right? Lawyers, for one.
Mhm.
There's, you know, nothing about them. And just across the field, like doctors, accountants, all those things.
Right.
For them to just hyper focus on that, I think is a disservice.
Right.
Because there is a lot involved in it, and unless you truly know and have worked in it, and that's why the failure rate of real estate agents is so high, or I should say they get out of the business.
Right.
You know, within the first year. What is it? Sarah knows these
I think
stats.
it was like 75% for the first year, and
the second year,
87 are out within 5.
Yep.
So it's super high. It's
Yeah.
a high stress
Yeah.
job. You know, it's not a job, it's a high stress career.
Right.
And people are
With
constantly
hours that are
attacking. Hours
all
that are,
like
right.
they're it's all the time.
It's not 9 to 5.
Right.
It's not 8 to 4.
Yeah.
It's all the time. You're all the time on, and you have to find coverage if you're on vacation.
Mhm.
It's a constant. I mean, I had a brick and mortar store for almost 20 years,
Mhm.
and I worked all the time then too. But when my shop was closed, I did have more downtime.
Yeah.
So this is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I don't think the focus should be on that per se.
Well, and I mean, there are going to be, like in any industry, there are going to be people that, if you look at the curve for what like the average real estate agent makes, there's going to be people on both ends of the spectrum. You are going to have people that, you know, do way, like, you know, earn way more than what the average agent makes. But what was it that the average agent makes a year? Was it?
It's less than $40,000.
Yeah,
Right.
some thousand, yeah.
Right. So
Come on.
it seems like it does seem a little strange that like there's so much focus on that. I also don't totally understand the comments about this will encourage agents to like work better with each other. Like what? Because a piece of paper is signed? Like I think if you're not going to be somebody that works well with others, that signing of a paper is not going to suddenly, like, I don't really understand that. I don't
Right.
know. You know, we've all worked with like some agents that are better than others, and that you would want to do a deal with again, or ones that you would not want to do a deal with again, right? But I don't know that signing a buyer agency suddenly creates all agents that you would want to work with.
Well, I agree with you there, and my problem with this statement here is that I don't see this settlement benefiting home buyers.
No.
In fact, I see it hurting a lot of home buyers, because now instead of having down payment and closing costs, it's down payment, closing costs, potentially a commission.
Right.
And most buyers, we all know this, they always go to the maximum amount they can afford because they don't want to have to move again, right? And certainly it comes out of the price, like they're paying for it. There's a lot of ways this goes. So that's factually incorrect, number one. And you know, when I hear that coming, like you know, I would have loved to say, hey, here's the here's all the things that a buyer agent can bring to the table. Here's how this is going to benefit people. So I didn't like that. And then he goes on to say there's better ways to help home buyers save money, including cutting transfer taxes, reducing property taxes, easing regulations for home builders to increase housing inventory, the latter of which I'm a big proponent of. I think that's a smart move. But these other taxes and things involved, like, then you've got a government problem, right? Like, so who's like, where's all this money going? And you know, the challenge with this is it was like 3 paragraphs. It wasn't well written. I mean, I think it could have been done a lot better. And by the way, this guy's coming on the Knowledge Brokers podcast, so this is not anything we're not going to say to him. We've already talked about this. And there's 500 comments on here right now. So I mean, the comments are like bananas. Like, there's very few that are expressing understanding of buyer representation. Most of them are either like wary or almost angry about the, you know, highlighting the distrust with real estate agents, which I get, because I understand why people distrust some of the folks we have to work with. So my hope is this will flush out some of those hobbyists, the part-timers, and that's going to be something that should be a positive here. But you know, the reality is, I think the public's kind of spoken, and they don't feel what they're getting is worth it. I mean, that's my takeaway here. Well, I know we deliver a certain level of service. How many times have you had a conversation on my last agent didn't tell me any of this stuff? Like, it is constant.
Yeah. yeah, you do hear from some people that, they sent me houses that we'd had no interest in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, because we told them so many times.
Mhm.
Or, I didn't know about that. I never seen a cost sheet.
Mhm.
What?
Right.
You've never seen a
Mhm.
cost sheet?
Right.
I don't know, some things are like,
Yeah.
So yeah, you do hear these things. But going back to a good point that you made, Tom, about some of these taxes. In Pennsylvania, there is a 2% transfer tax.
In most places, it's higher in some
In the-
parts of
yeah, in the
Pennsylvania.
city.
Yeah.
City,
Oh, right, in the
Upper
city it's
Providence
higher.
Township, Tredeffrin Township. I mean, there's it's higher in other places. So just
Yeah.
just to be super clear.
So on the low end, then it's 2% automatic, and
Mm-hmm.
it's usually shared 1% on the buyer side and then the seller side. So that is a good point right there. If first-time home buyers, if they're in, there's nothing really less than 300,000 anymore available for first-time home buyers. It's very, very difficult.
Mhm.
So just $300,000. That's an additional $3,000
Mhm.
that they have to pay, along with their title insurance and other fees. So yeah, there's some taxes and other regulation issues that there could be incentives.
Mhm.
Pennsylvania could incentivize
Right.
first-time home buyers for things like that.
Right.
I like what he talks about with the local zoning laws, but I mean there's so many things here that I have a problem with. And then like then there's the reaction of this article, right? So Rich Barton, see, and by the way, we work with Realtor.com and Zillow. Like I just want to be very clear. Like we partner with them. Rich Barton decides to dust off his Twitter account for the first time since March the 4th, and then he comments on this on a Realtor.com article, which is a competitor of theirs. Like let's just be very clear. And Rich Barton says, we found at Zillow to turn on the lights for regular consumers. This is a great deal of conversation happening right now about how the industry should evolve to further empower consumers. Given the debate, I want to point to our published Consumer Bill of Rights and it's published Real Estate Rights for Consumers, excuse me. It's a short, good read and captures what we believe since our founding. Our 3 key points are that consumers should have free and fair access to listings, independent representation, transparent and negotiable compensation for agents. I'm highlighting this now because the CEO of Realtor.com, Damien, has an op-ed sharing his valuable thoughts on points 2 and 3 above. So, it's very dubious to me that, Rich Barton's, coming out and supporting these guys. So, I mean, I don't. It kind of shows you how I don't like this op-ed in a lot of ways because some people argue that Zillow wants to be a brokerage, not just a portal. And if this happens, maybe it goes that way. I don't know, but I find this very curious that he's supporting this here, and I don't think I think it's reflective of this could have been written a lot better.
Interesting.
Yes, the plot thickens.
I got my tinfoil hat out here. We're going to put on next. So, it just when these leaders come out, you'd like to see them support the people that are their source of revenue. And also, I know that there is a value for buyer agency. Now, consumers don't feel like it's worth it. And there's a lot of agents that have come and gone, and the 75% gone. Like they'll be out of here. So, I think as an industry, we owe it to ourselves to really step up our level of service and prove people wrong, which one of the kind of the values like our team has in general. Like service is one of our core values, and it's because this is so stressful. You don't need any stress from the agent. So that's where you're going to see value. And I think this is like a lot of other industries. We're going to see some fallout here, but there will still be an industry of people that need that value to get through these transactions.
I definitely agree with that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the power of being specific next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
You shouldn't have to deal with all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time homebuyer programs. Pre-approval is free,
So
no
it's-
cost or
I'm finding
commitments.
my Skyline
For
roll.
more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania
they
with
would
over
want this-
$165 million in
business, right?
volume for 2021. I'm
Like,
Tom
he-
Toole,
like, he
and our
came
team
out.
has
I
achieved
met
that
him
kind of
like
success
at
by being a
the-
great place to work with and to
at
work for.
Diamond.
No one knows Greater Philly
Everything
better than we
sounded-
do. We know real
He was
estate,
like,
but
great,
more
great. Then like a
importantly,
day or
we're
two
real
later, he
people.
asked me what her.
We
he
hire the
texted me
best
and asked,
agents
like,
and we
what her
give
last
them
name
all the
is.
tools to
Gave it
succeed.
him.
Even
He
our
said he
brand
sent
new
something
agents
out
sell
and it was
17 to
called
24
Panda
homes a
Yeah,
year
it's
because
the
our team
electronic
delivers the
signature.
best
Through all of
experience
her
in real
stuff,
estate.
there was nothing.
Teams
I asked him
deliver a
to, like,
better
send it to me as
experience than
well. I
individuals,
forgot
and
to.
we're a top 1% real estate team in the country.
And
We
then
call it AAA service.
last week,
We're your
emailed him,
advocate,
and it
ally,
was
and
yesterday
advisor.
today, I've, like,
Because this isn't a
called,
transaction
texted.
to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can 30 seconds. FA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income?
10 seconds.
Have a license or not, call us today at
This was testing it on phone.
610-692-6976 or visit
AI
tomtoole.com.
transcription
Join our
of
team, the
protocols.
Tom Toole Sales next main line.
Wow.
All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Timon. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to go over the value of being specific. Dustin Fox put this article together for our friends over at BAM, and I found it to be super, super important and relevant in today's world. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, and if you want to connect with one of these two ladies about your real estate needs, you can do that with the link in the comments. So Dustin Fox, who is, he runs a real estate team, very similar to our organization in terms of the level of service and going about things. He put together this piece for BAM, and it talks about basically stop being general and how specific details can win over more real estate clients. So before we get into this, what's your experience been with being like hyper specific versus the generalist? What have you guys seen in your business dealings, or maybe when you've been on the consumer side of this?
I know with me sometimes I might not be specific enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just comes with because you automatically know details, and sometimes trying to pass those details off, it's just not conveyed.
Right, like you don't want to like overwhelm with
Mm-hmm.
like details that might just make the whole thing be like, this is too much.
Right, exactly. Where you start to lose people. So I think there's a balance between that. And as time goes on, you become more specific with things.
Right. Or you know what to be specific about. But that can also be, even if you know what to be specific about, it can be dependent on the client and how they operate. So sometimes it takes a bit with a new client that you've been working with to be specific about the right things.
Right. To find
There's
out
the learning
their threshold or their capacity, I guess.
Or what they like, some things they like may not even like care about.
Yeah, some people really, they want every detail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All of it, give it all to me.
And others are like,
Others are,
tell me this.
just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think, I love that, Sarah. You have to be in tune with your clients and how they operate. I think that's going to be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big believer in being specific because, it shows you're an expert. I think that's really what the intention is. Whether you're, you're on the radio show here, you're talking to people, no matter what it is, because when you have specific statistics, it shows you know your stuff, which I think most people are looking for that knowledge broker. Now, it also applies to marketing, so I found this pretty fascinating. So Dustin ran a test on some Meta ad manager, Facebook ad managers, and it was like a home value lead. So the first one just said you're in for a pleasant surprise, blah blah blah. It doesn't have a lot of there's nothing specific in there. The second is a generality review. So it said we have over 1,000 5-star reviews. And then the third has a specific review that says 1,381 5-star reviews. So, and he spent the same amount of money on each, because when you're running a test, you can only have one variable. If you have too many variables, it's going to screw the test up. So the specific review, if you looked at the click comparison, specific reviews example got 43 clicks as opposed to 38 on no reviews and 31 on general reviews. I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
And the it outperformed it by 13%, and it was actually 18% better than the one that had the general reviews. And this really tells me a lot of people kind of dismiss generalities. So when you say like, hey, most sellers do this or most people do this, well, we get hyper specific in our presentations where 68% of people move between 5 and 7 miles of their current home every year. It's not 75. It's not most people. It's a specific number based on data. And that to me is where you can really stand out. So, Stacy, you felt you could be a little more specific. What areas do you think you could apply that to your business right now?
Well, I love this demonstration of just having that very specific number. 1381 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
Got more clicks.
Right.
Got more interest. That's that's telling right there. I think honing in on the numbers. But I use that data, the 67%.
So you are being specific.
I guess, I don't know. I guess there's times where I feel like I could be more specific.
Right. Where I feel like when you look back at things, there's always like things that you like, I could have like done this or that. But I feel like in the moment, as long as you're like being as specific as you can, I think the thing you don't want to do is leave a lot of room for just like gray that then becomes confusing down the line. Like certainly be as specific as you can in areas that you can be specific, but avoid creating confusion, I guess.
I really love this as far as for the listing or the marketing. I love when you get they say how very specific it becomes to list the date that something has been updated if you're listing a property. The HVAC was updated in 2023. The roof was done in 2022. I think that is very, very important as opposed to newer roof, newer windows, newer this.
No, because I mean, when I'm like prepping, if I'm taking somebody out to a showing and you're going through the disclosure, there are certain items that like you are looking for, and then I like write it on the back of like the show sheet that I'm like bringing with me,
which is smart, by the way.
Puts I'm looking first for like currently occupied or vacant, just so you kind of know what to expect. When was it last occupied? Age of roof. Then like as you're going down the order, what was the age of the HVAC? How many zones?
When was it serviced?
When was it serviced? Water heater. Like even though like a water heater isn't that expensive of an item, people always want to know it. And when it's like water heater was 2023, people are like, yes.
Right. I know. It's funny.
But I mean, I guess like the install of the water heater is as much as the water heater.
Today it is.
Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I look for is any water in the basement.
Yep.
So there are specific things that we do hone in on, and we share that information. Make sure our clients, even though I emailed them the seller's disclosure, they might not have looked at it.
Right.
But if I bring this information with me to the showings and am able to convey that to them, then that's being very specific.
Yeah.
And it's appreciated.
So I totally agree with there, especially on the property descriptions, like what kind of materials are being used. Like, I mean, people they ask some pretty specific questions, so it's really critical to have that, and that's what a good listing agent does. I also like what he said here about the general marketing claims. Hey, we're number one. Number one in what? What does that even mean? We are very specific. We've been number one in this category with this company since this time. But a lot of people say they're number one, then you look them up and it's like, no, you're not. Or like we sold 100 homes last year and they sold like 72. It's like, well, you sold 72, not 100. Still an impressive number.
They're number one at selling 72 homes.
Maybe. But the flip side is those vague generalities when it comes to reviews can be more damaging than having no reviews at all. And that's where the more specific you are, the better off you're going to be. So Where I want to be more specific is with like my daily plan. I think that's actually like another thing. Like I know I'm going to do X, Y, and Z today, and that's I'm going to hit X amount of calls. I'm going to hit X amount of conversations. The goal is to get to X appointments. That's where being specific really helps too. So this is a really thoughtful article, and just it stuck out to me because we live in an era of like generalists right now, and I think there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of things really good, and you only really can do one thing really good in my view.
And I think being specific of steps forward and being specific of the information you're going to provide. So if it's new clients, hey, I'm going to send you the cost sheet. I'm going to get back to you about what the listing agent says about this. There might be a handful of things. I'm going to be specific about what I'm going to send to them next.
Right.
And I'll follow up with you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I think those things are really, really
Oh, yes. They know
what to expect.
Yeah, what to expect and what's coming next. And like, am I
Instead
supposed to be doing anything right now? You know, like as like me being the client right here, like what do I do next? You know, like just telling them like how the process flows. Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, I'll follow up with you later.
Yeah.
Like when later.
Yeah.
Let's put it in your calendar right now. I'm going to call you this time. What's the best number to call?
Right.
That works really well. It just the more intentional you are, the better results you're going to get. I think this is very important, no matter what it is. But think about the complaints that agents get. They weren't specific enough in explaining the documents. So like, what happens in a use and occupancy inspection? You know how many people just say, "Oh, the seller takes care of that"? Well, that's so far from being right. And so you got to be specific in your contract explanations, specific in the closing cost estimates, right? So all those things you're talking about are right on, ladies. Good stuff. Let's all try to be more specific.
Specifically.
Yes.
Specific.
Specifically, and I like it. That's it for this week's episode. You want to follow Sarah? She's on Instagram at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow Stacy at the number 2 Mitchko. You can follow me at TomToole3RD. We're live every week on YouTube. If you like the show, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and you can talk with these two ladies about real estate by scheduling a link in the comments. That's it for this week's episode on WWDB 860 AM.